Welcome to the Money, Mindset and Business podcast, where we talk about all things money, mindset and business with real life stories and real life people. Let's get into the episode. Hi, and welcome back to Money, Mindset and Business podcast. Today we have the wonderful Ian Preston, who I've bumped into various different capacities in my life. He does business coaching, and he's also a trainer for school governance, which is where I've seen him most recently as a governor for my local school. So Ian, please come on and introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what it is that you do.
Well, I think you've done most of that already, but I'll just try and expand on it later. From a school governor perspective, I wear two hats generally. One is a school governor trainer. I've been a school governor for 30 years, and I was chair of governors, and I sat on the NGA Trust Board, Essex. So I've got a lot of experience in governors. I've been training school governors for 7 or 8 years. From my business perspective, I was in the corporate sales world back from the 1980s, pre-laptops and mobile phones. Yes, there was a day. Knocking on doors and industrial estates in the pouring rain, asking for compliment slips, and then ringing people up half a day a week to make appointments for the following week with a phone that had a dial on it. So there you go. That's how whatever dinosaur I am. And I climbed the slippery pole, became sales manager, became sales director, got made redundant a couple of times, and started my own business up just coming up for 9 years, 8.5 years ago. And initially to do sales training. Then I discovered how to use LinkedIn more effectively as marketing resource. And then as my coaching abilities have improved, I now do general business coaching, particularly around vision, strategy, time management, sales and marketing, but really focusing on getting more business in.
Awesome. Sounds amazing. So if you were 9 years ago when you started your business, did you expect to be where you are now? Where you were back then?
It's interesting because different people start working for themselves for different reasons. I sort of ran out of options. I was at that age I was in my mid-50s, and I was going for interviews and going for jobs that I was eminently qualified for and wasn't getting them. And nobody will ever tell you you're too old or you're past it, or you're just looking for a comfy job to drink coffee and eat chocolate biscuits, which is, if the people know me, it's far from me. So I sort of ran out of options, and so it was like, okay, I'll start my own business. Let's see where this takes us, and I'll be tough. We'll come on to it a bit more, but it was tough for the first few years.
Yeah. So going back 9 years ago, let's go back to that place now. So you've been made redundant, you've been looking for jobs unsuccessfully, so you decide to start working for yourself. Build us a picture of what that looked like for you in terms of where you were living, what your emotions were like, how were your stress levels, were you sleeping, and just everything. Just build me a picture so I can feel like I was Ian 9 years ago.
That's 8.5 years ago. I've slept and drunk, been a hell of a journey, and slept and drunk copious amounts of alcohol since then. It was tough. I make no bones about it. I signed up for a franchise to do with using LinkedIn more effectively, which I thought would be a useful introduction to business, because when you're in a corporate world, in sales, everything else is done for you. You've got a marketing department supplying you leads, that people chase up debts, people send invoices out. All you've got to do is get the orders in, effectively hand them over to something else. Whereas when you're when you run your own business, there's a lot more. You appreciate there's a lot more. This stuff goes on, but you're never actually directly involved in it. So suddenly when you start your own business, you're the salesperson, the marketeer. You've got to manage your time. You've got to be the finance person. You've got to do the admin. Oh, and by the way, you've got to find time to do the work that actually pays.
Yeah.
And whilst there was some little bits of usefulness that came out of the franchise, it all went. I won't use the word I normally use. It went legal in the end. It all got a bit messy, and a number of us sort of managed to get out of it. I did learn some good stuff, but it was massively overpriced for what I got out of it. But it set me on the journey.
Awesome. So what were your emotions like back then? Were you kind of worried? I mean, because obviously this is a podcast talking about money and mindset and business. Were you worried about money from getting money in to be able to afford food, bills, mortgage, whatever it is that the situation was?
It was tough. It was tough. It was tough for a time. I'd come from a really, really good, highly well-paid job in the corporate world. Nice car, BMW 5 Series, pension, health cover, all that sort of stuff, which enabled at the time my wife then to pack up work and follow her passion for writing. And she's a published author. She's had 16, 17 books published. Never pays well, never have a Ferrari on the drive, but it gave us the felicity to do that, the flexibility and the freedom to do that. Suddenly then we hadn't got a lot of money coming in because I wasn't earning like my own new business. I'd had some redundancy money, which sort of tided us over. But it was, I have to say, it was very, very tough in the first couple of years, particularly. Yes, there were some tough times.
Did you ever find yourself feeling like, I can't do this, or did you start carry on looking for jobs, or were you determined to stick to the business?
In the early days, some people who work for themselves will say, "Oh, it's great, the freedom, the flexibility. You know, you can do what you want to when you want to. Yes, when you've got the money coming. I'm in that position now. I'm in the fourth position now. I don't have to work. My business is very successful. I've also had a couple of corporate pensions kick in, so now I don't have to work. It's strange when the pressure's off, the work comes in. When you really want the work to come in and you're really struggling, it doesn't come in. But back in the day, it was tough. Yes, I would have happily gone into the corporate world. You know, people would say, "Oh, you can't beat working for yourself. You can't beat having a regular check coming in the same day every month." That puts, Peter Roper, the small business guy locally, has that famous saying about you need to be able to sleep at night and fill the fridge, and if you can do that, you're well on your way. You're okay. And there were tough times in the early days. I make no bones about it. And I wasn't passionate about working myself in those first couple of years. If somebody had come knocking on the door and said, "Ian, here's the job, 75 grand a year, nice car on the drive, pension, da-da-da-da-da," I'd been back in the corporate world tomorrow. I'd say, when do I start? Yeah.
So why do you think that possibly changed to where you are now, in terms of obviously having that successful business, and you've obviously got a lot of different things going on within your business? How did you get from being that person who was literally ready to give it up if an opportunity knocked, to where you are now? What did that journey look like?
There's no doubt about it. It's about money. You know, people, too many people shy away from saying it's about the money. We shouldn't shy away from the fact that whatever business we're in, we need to make a profit. We need to have more coming in than going out the door. Whether it's in, your business, in a bigger business, or whether it's in your home life, your home, if more money's coming in than is going out, you're doing okay, you're okay. If it's the other way around, it's a struggle. And so it's definitely money that makes a difference, and we shouldn't shy away from talking about that. In my very early days, I was having to pay this franchise fee, and there would have been more going out than coming in. And I just had to find ways to bring money in. And one of the ways I actually did it was I'd always had a passion for governor training, and I knew a guy that delivered governor training. So I went and had a meeting with him, and sometimes you're in the right place at the right time. I went and had a meeting with him, and I said, "Look, I love governor training. I love being a governor. I think I'm pretty good at training. I've been training salespeople in Salesville for 20 odd years, so I knew I was half decent at it." And I said, "How would I go about delivering some governor training? I'm not trying to compete with you, because this is one of the things this guy was doing as well." He said, "Funny enough, Ian," he said, "come and see me in a couple of weeks." He said, "I might have some good news for you." And he had just been appointed, which I didn't know then, he'd just been appointed as the interim governor services manager for Walsall, as it turned out. So he said, "Come and help me with some training, but also in the first instance, we've got some gaps in the clerking. Would you like to do some clerking?" Now, I'd sat in governing board meetings at that stage for 20 odd years, and the clerk just sat up the corner and took notes. I thought, "Yeah, I can do that." And so I went and did it. I didn't enjoy it. I learned so much about governance. I thought I knew about governance until I became a clerk, and I realised how much I didn't know. I was taking notes in meetings and thinking, I don't know about that. And I was got a separate column of things to remind myself to go look up after the meeting. Didn't pay very well for the hours I put in. To give you an idea now, just to put it into context without talking about exact numbers, you probably spend about 10 hours per meeting, per governor cycle meeting. I was being paid back then, so 2014, 15, I was paid then for those 10 hours of work, the same amount of money I now charge for an hour.
Crazy, isn't it?
It's because I need, the education word doesn't play very well, but I needed to bring money in. And so I was doing 3 schools, all these meetings, and it enabled me then to keep my head above water and effectively cross that threshold where I was actually bringing in more than I was actually spending. So I wasn't making a fortune. I was barely making a profit, but at least I was bringing in more than I was spending.
So you could basically, you were funding your life and business through doing the governor training.
Yeah.
Well, the clerking, sorry.
Yeah.
Do you think having that that time out of your week, month, whatever cycle it was, I think it's quarterly, isn't it? Governor meetings.
Yeah, there tend to be sort of 3 meetings per school per term generally.
So those 30 hours per 3-4 months.
Yeah.
Did that have a massive impact on your business, or was it easy to kind of find the time to be able to do that, to, you know, for what it was bringing in for you?
It was a balance. One of the things I talk to people about is time management and time mastery. So it is about how you manage your time. At the time, I hadn't got a lot of business work coming in because I was still trying to get known and get out there. So it was a case of I was either going to governing board meetings, writing notes up and writing minutes up properly, or I was going to networking events and events where I was getting my name out. And that was really how I spent my time.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, there was times when I was sitting there doing these minutes thinking, I'd rather be doing something different to this. But that if this is what it means to survive and bring the money in, then this is what I'll carry on doing.
Yeah, I think sometimes, I know I've seen it before, where you start your business and it's not going as well as you want it to be, and the thought of going back into like a paid job feels like a failure. And especially if you go into a job that you know is not at your skill level, it's like below your skill level. But I mean, how did you feel when you took that role, knowing that you were obviously overqualified for it, but it was leading you to somewhere that you wanted to be? How did you feel in that particular time?
I never considered it to be a failure. That's probably me. I'm the eternal optimist. I'm the eternal person that's glass is half full, or if not, it can be always refilled. It's bottomless glass. So I never considered myself to be a failure. I was bitter about the fact that people wouldn't employ me because of my age, but they can't say that. I was very bitter about the way that the recruitment business works. They're all over you like a rash when you're a sales manager and they want to push candidates in front of you, or the sales director, and put candidates in front of you. As soon as you're on the side of the fence, you want their help, they never return phone calls. Yeah. So that left me quite bitter and twisted about that. But no, I never thought I actually thought for a time it was a temporary thing. You know, I thought, back in the corporate world, and you know, and then as time went on and business started to come in, which I'm sure we'll move on to how that happened. But business started to come in, and therefore it then got a bit more comfortable, a bit more enjoyable, and it got to the stage where a couple of years after, I only did the clerking for a couple of years. I learned so much about governance, which then when I come to do my governor training helped a lot. But it kept sort of head above water for a couple of years when I needed to do it.
Yeah. So how did you deal with the bitterness?
It's not a feeling all the time. You know, it's in the quieter moments. You think, or something happens in front of you, or somebody won't return a phone call. You know, and I think to myself, I remember when, you know, you wanted my help and I was returning phone calls for you. No, I want your help. You're not. But you have to move on. No, you can't let you know what they say, nail it to my carborundum. Don't let the grind you down.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So you were doing clerking for a couple of years, growing your business. What do you think was the biggest thing that you did beyond the marketing, not marketing, the networking, getting your name out there? What was that point, and how far into your business was that point when you felt like, yeah, this is going somewhere now?
I think there's 2 things I'd say to that. One is it wasn't one thing. Clive Woodward, when he wrote about and talked about England winning the Rugby World Cup in 2003, was asked what one thing made the difference. And he said we didn't do one thing 100% better. We did 100 things 1% better.
So it's an accumulation of
it was sowing lots of seeds. It was literally going networking morning, noon, and night. When I was in the corporate world, I'd never heard of networking. You know,
No,
and I started working for myself, and somebody said, "You need to go networking." And I said, "What's networking?" And they said, "You need to go networking." And so I found a local networking group, and then, as it turned out, in that group there was Mr. Local Networking there, who knew every networking event. So I got chatting to him, and he said, "You need to go to this one, that one, and the other one." And of course, then you go to other ones, and they tell you about other ones. Before you know where you are, you're going to a dozen networking events a week sometimes. But when you haven't got a lot of work on a game,
Hi, this is Leah interrupting your own podcast to tell you about the up and coming Business Mastery Workshop coming up on the 17th of May 2023. It'll be running from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. UK time. And this is for you if you feel like you're repelling the exact thing that you want in your life and in your business. Does everything that you try tend to send you in the opposite direction? This could be to do with what's motivating you to achieve your goal. During the workshop, we will realign your motivation, understand how you're sabotaging yourself, and build some strong financial foundations within your life and in your business. The link to register and find out more is in the show notes. Now, back to the episode.
Got nothing else to do, so you might as well go. And it's a case of sowing lots of seeds and watering them and cultivating contacts and cultivating friendships and networks and stuff. And then eventually people start coming to you and saying, "Yeah, I think you might be able to help me," or "Can you come and talk to me?" And my first major client was an accounting company in Dudley, who paid me to do 12 weeks of coaching on LinkedIn for them. And that was sort of thing, you know what, I can do this is going to work. And then before you know where you are, you get some more and they recommend you and da 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 da.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely what I've found myself is getting your face out there, talking to people, building those relationships. They might not be the people that you end up working with, but they become the people that go, "Oh, I know somebody who can help you. Blah, 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 that I met at XYZ event." Give them a call. And that's definitely what it's all about.
Yeah, I found myself going to network. You need to get known. I say this now to people when I'm coaching or when I'm speaking to people or doing speaking events, is the fact that nobody will ever buy from you and I when we want them to buy. They will buy when they are ready to buy. And part of the art of marketing, whether it's regularly going networking, putting posts on LinkedIn or online or whatever it might be, is keeping our name in the frame so that when people think of this product or service that they want to buy, they think of us first. And that's really what we're about. And the better we get at doing that, the more likely we are for people. I was going networking after the time, and I got known as Mr. LinkedIn. And you got nicely called LinkedIn, which I think is quite nice. But I was then going to networking events, and people were bringing people over to me to say, "Hi, Ian, I've just been talking to so and so. They want some help with LinkedIn. You are the go-to man." And there you go. And so it gradually builds up.
Cool. So throughout the whole 9 years that you've been in business, out of all of it, what major obstacles do you think were along the way, and how did you overcome them?
I think one of the biggest obstacles is the fact that people are very loath to spend money on self-development or development of their team. They can always find excuses not to do it. And it's a case of, talking to them about not just not just the benefits it brings, but how much better they could be. There's a famous saying in the sales world that people move away from pain quicker than they move towards pleasure. So the fact you can say you're improving somebody's life is okay. The fact you can say you can take some pain away by doing this makes the psychology of the mind so much easier to make decisions. Fortunately, I have been in the sales world for many, many years. I'm passionate about self-development. I still read stuff. I still listen to things on Audible and DVDs and stuff. And I'm in the very fortunate position that, having been what I would call a well experienced and knowledgeable sales practitioner, I can help people change their minds. I'm not going to force people to do it, because that's manipulation.
Yeah.
But when you encourage somebody and show them the benefits, that's sort of motivation, which is a big difference. And so fortunately, having been in the sales world for many years, I had the tools and the techniques to take people on a journey from I'm interested to parting with their cash. It never ceases to amaze me, Leah, how many people go into business and have got no sales skills at all. They think the businesses are going to come flying over the wall and land in their lap. And let's put it, when we say business, that's cash, that's money in the bank. That's cash that pays for, the nice car, the holidays, the shoes on our kids' feet, the clothes on our back, and all that sort of stuff. You need to be able to sell. I get on this, I bang this drum all the time. You need to be able to sell. And I say, people go into business and just think the business will come flying. And when they can't, they don't know what to say. People don't know what to say when somebody says no, or how to prevent a no in the first place, or what to say when somebody says it's too expensive. And the answer is never, I'll do it cheaper. So from my perspective, one of the big advantages I had was I had those skills inside me that I could help people and persuade people to go on that journey. I hate to think it would have been a total, I can honestly say this looking back, and I haven't done this for some time, looking back, I think I'd have been a totally different place had I not got those skills and been able to, when it was really crucial, to persuade those people to part with their cash.
Yeah. I mean, I can honestly say the first investment I made when I went into business, so I started September 2020, I went, and by November 2020, I'd invested in a sales coach.
Invested in what, sorry?
I invested in a sales coach within a couple of months of starting my business, because I knew
that's wise.
Where my weakness was. Being in the finance world, sales to an accountant literally feels like the other end of the spectrum. Well, it does when you're in the corporate world, because you're like, I have no idea what this guy's doing. He's getting paid a lot of money and he just seems to go around and talk to people. And there's me doing all this hard work. But the fact of the matter is, they're doing a lot of hard work, because having those conversations with potential clients can take a lot of brain work when they're very kind of, I'm not sure, and you have to build those skills up. And that's something I've learned massively from working with my sales coach, and I'm so glad I invested in that so quickly.
And it's not, and to be fair, Lil, it's not just hard-working brain power. It's like, with the greatest respect to accountants and people like you and people like me, accountants aren't getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning or 5:30 in the morning, hitting the M25 at 8 o'clock in the morning, and grinding to a standstill to get to meetings for somewhere in London for 9 o'clock. And don't forget, this is pre-Zoom. Accountants, literally speaking, and other office-based people tend to set the alarm clock every day, get up, have breakfast, 20 minutes, hopefully drive to work, and then work all day and drive back home. They're home by 6 o'clock. There were many times when I was leaving home at 5:30, 6 o'clock, and not going back till 7, 8 o'clock in the evening. So it's not just brain power. It's literally speaking, I was doing 25,000-30,000 miles a year.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen it. I mean, I used to, part of my corporate role, I used to do sales expenses. And the amount of times that there'd be breakfast, dinner and tea in a day.
Yeah.
And there was obviously hotels as well. And this is time that they're away from their family.
Yeah.
And you don't think about that when you're in the corporate world until you're a business owner and you're living it yourself, having to spend that time away from your personal life just to be able to push your own business. But it's what you need to do. And I literally, my view on salespeople has completely shifted based upon what I've known since I've been in the self-employed world. So I completely get that. So we've talked about where you come from, how you got there in a matter-of-fact way. So if you could give any advice to people who are listening today, whatever part of the journey they're on, but if they're feeling stuck, and when it comes to like money, and they're like stressing that they haven't got the money, or they're not quite sure where the next bit of money is coming in, what advice could you give any of the listeners today?
I think a couple of things I'd say is, first, from a sales perspective, you need to be resilient. I remember walking around those industrial estates, knocking on doors, no, and you still got to want to get up the next day and do it again and do it again and do it again, because every now and again you'll come across a gem and it makes it worthwhile. And I still get a buzz when I get an order, when somebody says, yes, we want to do you, what can you do a 6 months coaching? Yes, I still get a buzz. So I think resilience is one thing. I think having a cash pot, if you set up your own business, I would always, one of the things I recommend, I wrote a post or a blog a few months ago. You can check it out on my website and check it out on my LinkedIn page.
Yeah, all the links that for you will be in the.
Okay. And it's called 10 Top Tips for New Businesses and what existing businesses should already know. And one of the things I talk about there is a couple of things. One is exactly to do with finance. Assume you're not going to earn for 6 months. So make sure you've got a cash pot that you could live off for 6 months. You can fill the fridge and help you sleep at night, because it's probably going to take you 6 months to get some new clients in. Unless, of course, you're one of these fortunate people that had one role and then some of your existing clients say, as soon as you start up your business, we'll come with you. That's a nice thing to do. It happens rarely. So have a cash pot for 6 months that you can survive, because it'll make life a bit easier. The other thing I'd say, putting my business coaching hat on, is understand why you went into business in the first place. You know, some people use the phrase, "What's your why?" I hate that. I don't like it personally. But, I guess, it gets the message over. But understand why you went into business. Yes, we can talk about vision and strategy a bit later. But understand why you went into your business, because when in some of your deepest, darkest moments, when you're stressing about no money coming in and why, if you understand why you're doing it, then it sort of holds your head above the water and think, this is why I'm doing it. I'm going to keep going. I'm confident I'm going to do it. One of the other things I also say to people from my business coach on again is, like you did, get a mentor. Whether it's free advice from the local growth hub or invest in somebody that can guide you and help you, like you went to a sales coach. One of the things I say to people is draw up a skills audit. I said earlier, when we are running our own business, we are the salesperson, the marketer, and time manager, finance, and all that sort of stuff. We're not necessarily good at all of them. And when I coach new clients, and I've just started coaching a new client a couple of weeks ago. First thing I said to her was, do a skills audit, mark yourself out of 10 for all these skills that you need to run a business, because it gives me some focus that we can talk about, but it also gives you a focus. Anybody, even if you don't invest, you can't afford not to invest your time. Even if you haven't got any money to invest, there's lots of things on YouTube. There's lots of books you can read. There's lots of YouTube and all sorts of stuff you can do. Don't just assume, what they say about assume, it makes an ass out of you and me. Don't just assume that the work's going to come in. You have to work at it and work at the things that you are not good at. So in answer to your question, have a pot of money that'll tide you over for when you're starting out, and understand why you're doing, and be very confident about why you're doing what you're doing. And again, that'll hold your head above water and keep you going in tough times.
Yeah, I think coming back to that why is definitely something that I've done quite a bit within the first few years of my business. Because you kind of think, well, it would be easier if I just got a job. But then I think, okay, so why did I go into business in the first place? And for me, it's to be here for my children. And being in a corporate role as an accountant, you are expected to be there 8 till 6 in most corporate roles, which means I miss the school runs, which means I'm back after tea time, back before they get to, just before they get to bed. And I'm like, well, the whole reason why I went self-employed is so I could be there for my kids. So by taking this corporate role, I would not be fulfilling the reason why I went into business in the first place. I'm completely back on the reason why I did it. Because it's a massive leap going from corporate to self-employed. It's a huge leap, because like you've already said, you haven't got that guaranteed monthly income anymore. So yeah, that why is huge. And I'm not the biggest fan of like find your why, but it's, I call it a purpose. What's your purpose statement? And that is essentially your why. That's how I kind of coach people, is to find your purpose. The purpose for your business is encompassing your why.
Yeah.
Cool.
So I'll carry on there. So put pregnant pause. I think the other thing you said a few minutes ago was what sort of changed fundamentally. So a couple of years in, I'd started running my own workshops. 10 or 12 people in a room, paying give or take 100 quid a ticket for 3 hours about how to use LinkedIn more effectively as a marketing resource. And it was hard work. It was hard work putting bums on seats, even for less than 100 quid a ticket. So yeah, if I filled the room, which I rarely did, it was it was a useful spent. You know, it was useful money coming in. But the amount of hours I had to spend to put those bums on seats, it was almost like if I worked out an hourly rate, I was probably better off stacking shelves at Tesco's.
Yeah.
But again, it got me out there. I remember one day, I think I did I was trying to promote a workshop, and I think I got 5 networking events in one day, which took some doing.
Wow.
I think that's my record. And so I was doing those. And then around the same time, I met a couple of people at events. And it's a funny, you know, sometimes you take a turn in life and you think, why did I do that? And if I hadn't have done that, things would have been so different. But I always remember going to an education expo at the NEC, and I had got a meeting planned. I was going to go to an expo in the afternoon at Drake Manor Park.
Yeah.
As they came out to the NEC, turning right was going home, turning left was going another 20 miles up the road to go to this. And I think, do I really want to go? Yeah, I'll come here, I'll go. And as it turned out, I bumped into somebody there who was at the Staffordshire and Stoke Growth Hub. Got talking to them. I explained what I did, and they said, we could use you because we've got this European money, which is for all our courses and certified courses, but we do need as part of the package to run some one-off workshops. Can you help? Of course I can help. And so I ended up doing workshops for them. And all I had to do was send them the promotional blurb about what the course was all about and about me. They did all the promotion. They put the bums on seats. It was free for people to attend. All I had to do was literally speaking, rock up, deliver, go home, send an invoice. Now, although it wasn't, I didn't earn as much per session as I would have done if I'd have filled the room, which I rarely did. From a time perspective, it was really good value. So literally speaking, you know, rock up, deliver, go home, send an invoice. And at the same time, I also met somebody from Chester University who wanted to do exactly the same. So suddenly then I was doing a couple of workshops a month and doing that. So that was started bringing regular money coming in. And it's like once in the corporate world, when you're struggling for work, nothing comes in. When you've got plenty of work coming in, everything gets easier. It's almost like, you know, and then the work and that sort of fundamentally changed me. So the work really started coming in then.
Yeah, sounds good. I mean, to be honest, workshops are something that I'm looking into starting in April, depending on when this goes out. I think this is going out in May.
Okay.
Recording. So I will have done one already, but there's going to be one a month to start off with. So watch out for that if you're listening. There'll be some blurb in a bit below about that.
Don't forget to drop my name on LinkedIn so I can send it out to my 10,000 connections.
Yeah. Well, anyway, thank you very much, Ian. It's been really good chatting to you and finding out a bit more about you. And yeah, well, if anybody wants to connect with Ian, you can find all his details in the show notes below, and I'll speak to you soon. Cheers. Bye.